Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dialog One-on-One. I'm your host, Liam Shea, and today we have an amazing interview lined up with our amazing guest, April Julien. April is here to join us today to talk about her taking second place on this huge smash hit show on Netflix, Is It Cake? Her incredible talent of making super realistic objects, but cake, and also just here to talk about how she came to the love of art and as well as her time spent at George Brown College. Thank you so much for joining us today, April. Such a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Liam.
So, I guess to start off, congratulations on taking second place on the Netflix show.
Thanks.
Um, so, I guess just to help our viewers understand what the show's about, maybe you can give us a rundown on what Is It Cake is.
Yeah. So it's a pretty hilarious show. I would describe it as a baking show for people who don't necessarily like to watch baking shows. It's
Okay.
kind of like a game show and a reality TV show and a baking show all in one. So basically, myself and eight other bakers um, are challenged with making everyday objects out of cake.
Right.
And those hide amongst the real objects on a rotating stage, and a panel of celebrity judges have to try to find the cake. And if they can't, we have the chance to win some money.
Awesome. That's super cool. So, well, being on like I was saying, it's a Netflix show. It's quite a big audience. Like, what was the experience being on like that type of level of production?
It was intense,
Okay.
I like I was the only Canadian on this show
Oh,
too.
really?
So yeah, so it was I really understood the stakes. It's not just the money. Netflix is a huge platform that,
Right.
streams internationally. So, I was pretty nervous already. And then
Right.
knowing that like pretty much everyone in the world could potentially see this. And last I checked, it was in the top 10 in like 75 countries around the world. So
Oh,
a
really?
lot of people have seen it. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So I'm guessing the show brought a lot of exposure to you and your brand then.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I had previously, I've had this Instagram account for like 1,000 years with, maybe 300, 400 followers.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I think I'm now close to 15,000, in the last 2 weeks, which is
Wow.
insane.
Yeah. No, that's a huge jump. Congratulations on the 15,000 followers.
Thanks. It's a big jump, right?
Yeah, it is a big jump. Yeah. um
Yeah.
no, that's incredible. So you for your Instagram you were saying before, was that
Mhm.
kind of like your main source of getting your work out there, or or do you do like custom orders, or do you have your own bakery? Kind of like what's your go-to work right now?
Yeah, so this is not my main line of work. I'm
Okay.
actually my day job is completely unrelated to baking. I'm the
Oh,
director of
okay.
education for the Canadian Civil Liberties Association.
Oh,
So I
okay.
teach about rights and freedoms to learners of different ages. But my Instagram account, I can't even remember when I started it, but before that, I had like Flickr account, and I just would, share pictures of my cakes,
Right.
because I started doing this well before cakes were like a big thing that was happening on TV. I started in
Yeah.
2007.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, yeah, and so I think my photos between Flickr and my website and Instagram have sort of been circulating for many years now, and I'm assuming that's how the producers of the show found me.
No, that's cool. So it was really much a side hobby that kind of took a life of its own and started expanding into this huge thing.
Totally side hustle hobby thing that someone took notice of last summer and then just blew up in a big way.
So how did you get into the hobby of? Because I'm assuming did you always make super realistic cakes, or was it just like it started as cakes and then evolved into like super like realistic like everyday objects?
Yeah, it's so specific, right?
Yeah.
um, so I started, as I mentioned, like sort of doing cake decorating in 2007. And yeah, it was more the traditional, like looking cakes. And increasingly, I remember the first like non cake looking cake I ever got asked to do probably was in 2007 or 2008. Whenever the first iPhone came out, I don't even remember, but somebody asked me to make an iPhone cake. And yeah, it wasn't hyper realistic then. It was like a very cute iPhone looking cake. But over the years, people started asking me to sort of, the first one really, really hyper realistic was someone asked me to make a high top Air Jordans.
Okay.
And my husband, being a sneakerhead, like I was trying to impress him to make this cake look as real as possible. And it turned out really great. It really did look like the shoe. And that's kind of how it started.
That's cool. No, that's really awesome. I'd love to see some, I'm also quite a sneakerhead myself, so to see realistic, Jordan 1s in cake form would be really cool.
These were actually Space Jam retro.
Oh, really?
11s.
Okay, that's even cooler.
Yeah. I'm glad you know what they are.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. So what's the type of the process that has to go into making these cakes? I'm assuming it's like a lot of work to get that super detailed, realistic look.
For sure. Absolutely. So it all starts off with getting reference photos, or if you can, the real object. So I need to see it from multiple angles, right? So it takes a lot of time, even just trying to capture whatever it is I'm recreating from those different angles. If I can find a video, even better, because then I can just sort of pause it at the different angles. If I can get the real object with me, then that's like the best possible scenario.
Right.
But no one will lend me their dog for like 48 hours
right.
to make it sit still. So you got to start with that. And then there's the baking, of course. Then the usual, like trying to make it actually taste good. That's one thing about this show and about these kinds of cakes. People assume they taste bad because like all we care about is the look.
Right.
But if you watch the show, you'll see the judges are surprised by the fact that all the cakes actually taste really good. And then once the cake is done, it's all about the decorating, like making it look like something else by using a whole bunch of techniques and different ingredients to try to mimic those different textures and different shine and things like that.
Right. Well, like going back to what you said, because, you're saying that these cakes are not just look amazing, but they're also really delicious, which I didn't know. I thought it was also just, so I'm guessing you have to be very specific and very detailed about what ingredients you have to use, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's like the classics, chocolate and vanilla, that sort of thing. But, on the show, for example, I tried to, knowing I was the only Canadian there, knowing I was the only Filipino actually there, I tried to infuse like Asian flavors into my cake so that it would be part of the story. Like it's not just the look of things, like the flavors I'm putting inside are also part of my story as a person and my identity.
Right.
So yeah, those things were really important to me. And I definitely, the judging wasn't based on just looks, whenever there was a tie, it came down to taste as well.
Okay. Oh, so it was really important to make sure it's like you didn't just have the best looking cake, but you had the best tasting one as well.
For sure. Like I didn't want those celebrities eating sawdust or anything like that.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. So like I've noticed like this huge trend going on with like, especially when I go on TikTok, I'm always getting at least 3 of like, is it cake or is it not?
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's a fun game to guess. So just in your opinion, where do you think this like this trend came from? Why do you think it suddenly just blew up out of nowhere?
I feel like it was something that people were bored during the pandemic, and then a couple of these videos came out, and then everyone was like, "Oh wow!" It was just something new to latch onto.
Right.
This trend, and then it just got weirder and weirder. People just, replicating, stranger and stranger things. And so who knows? I don't know where this trend can possibly go to. I see people now like creating their environment, like you're eating the stairs now of your house. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
So what's the, because like you were saying, people are making like weirder and weirder. It's like people eating stairs and like their actual bedroom now.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the hardest cake that you've ever made?
The hardest cake I've ever made. That's a good question. Okay, well, the hardest cake I've ever made is not a hyper realistic cake. Actually, it was an homage to Tim Burton, and it was basically 3 retro television sets stacked on top of each other, and inside each one was basically a diorama of a scene from a Tim Burton movie.
Oh,
So like
really?
I made like little sugar scenes and put them inside these TV sets. And they looked exactly like, Nightmare Before Christmas or Franken. No, I can't remember the name of the particular movie. It's escaping my brain.
Mm.
Frankenweenie.
Right. Okay.
And yeah. So that was tough. Like all of it was difficult.
Right.
But in terms of hyper realistic cakes, it's hard to do things like dogs, right? Anything that has fur, that's hard to create with like something that is clay, basically, right? How do you make fur?
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you make the fur? That's an interesting.
Yeah, so there's lots of little tools that are originated as sort of clay tools for artists that work in clay, that are sort of basically rebranded as cake decorating tools. But it's like a Dresden. It looks like a little sort of skinny hook, and you use that and like individually make the texture of fur, which you can imagine takes forever.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I was saying before in the introduction, you did a couple of classes at George Brown. What classes did you take, and what really did you take away from them?
Yeah, so when I started back in 2007, I didn't, as I mentioned, like there wasn't a million cake shows. I don't think there were any cake shows out there the way it is now. Now you have tutorials for every possible thing you could ever make on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. And that didn't exist at the time. So I was just looking for different places where I could learn sort of the basics and build from those skills. So I believe I took a bunch of continuing education classes at George Brown. There was a baking class. I also took a cooking class. I was also interested in just sort of general cooking and cuisine. But yeah, I took a couple of basic sort of baking courses, and there were a few classes where we were making cakes and things like that. So really, it was just sort of setting the foundation for baking and some decorating skills. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess for my final question to wrap everything up, I always let my guest have the final word if they want to plug themselves, give some inspiration to our viewers, or just anything that's on their mind.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What are these wonderful words of wisdom I have? Yeah, I can't say, I don't know like what aspirations anyone has for, becoming a baker or a TV baker. I never anticipated this was ever going to happen to me. I never sought it out myself. Like I just kind of got scouted. And I think I just pursued it as a way to like have a creative outlet for my day job. And I always just sort of posted it just for my own record of the work I've done.
Right.
And I guess I got noticed for it. So I don't know, maybe that's the strategy.
Right.
Put yourself out there and who knows what can possibly happen.
No, I agree 100%. Just if you have a dream and if you really enjoy your doing, something eventually will come along that will change your life, even if it is just a hobby.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for joining us, April. I learned a lot about the art and fascination of making realistic cakes. Everyone, please, if you're watching, check out our show. Is It Cake on Netflix? It's a fantastic watch. And it's amazing to see all these amazing creations. And please check out April on Instagram at April Julien Cakes. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, please check her out because her cakes are fantastic, and I bet they're amazing to taste as well. Again, April, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Liam.
I'll catch you guys next time on Dialogue One-on-One. Thanks for joining. Bye now.